Number 5 on this list is the reversed demon. This demon clearly took some gymnastic classes when they were alive as a person, because they're definitely flexing their flexibility muscles now in the demon afterlife. The clips that I'm about to show you were posted to the YouTube channel Kisa Weba. They were captured by a security camera and show a demon slowly crawling across the ground. So as we can see, that demon is just slowly meandering along, minding its own business. Now, you may think that this is the end of the story, but it's actually not, because that thing was caught on another security camera in the area a little bit later. Let's take a look at that. Now what on God's green earth is that freaking thing? I mean, it has to be a demon, right? Like, what the hell? Its face is clearly all white, completely inhuman. And now that we can fully see the way that it walks, we get a clear sense of how demonic it actually is. I think the biggest question that comes up through all of this, though, is what is it doing and where's it going? Fingers crossed that whatever it was doing doesn't concern any one of us.
Coming in at number 4, we have Amityville. Back in September of 1977, Jay Anson published a book called The Amityville Horror, which would later become the basis of a series of films released from 1979 onwards. The book is claimed to be based on the paranormal experience of the Lutz family, a case which of course led to many controversies and widespread attention. Now, some history before diving into the story of the Lutz family. Back in November of 1974, Ronald DeFeo Jr. shot and killed 6 members of his family at 112 Ocean Avenue in the suburban neighborhood in Amityville. He was ultimately convicted of second-degree murder and sentenced to 6 life sentences, with him passing away in custody in March of this year. Now, DeFeo had reported that voices had told him to kill his family. Whether these claims were true, we don't know. Jumping forward, in December of 1975, George and Kathy Lutz and their 3 children moved into the same home, and after just 28 days they fled the house, claiming to have been terrorized by paranormal entities while living there. On the evening of March 6, 1976, the home was investigated by Ed and Lorraine Warren along with a television crew from Channel 5 New York. During the investigation, a series of pictures were taken, one of the images allegedly showing a demonic boy with glowing eyes standing at the foot of the staircase. The Warrens quite quickly suggested that the home was occupied by malevolent spirits, with the Warrens' visit to the home being depicted at the beginning of The Conjuring 2. Coming in at number 3, we have the Smurl haunting. The Smurl haunting took place between 1974 and 1989, with Jack and Janet Smurl of West Pittston, Pennsylvania, alleging that a demon was inhabiting their home. The claims gained a lot of attention, as you would expect, with demonologists Ed and Lorraine Warren once again stepping in to solve the case. Now, the family moved into their home on Chase Street, with them claiming that they were being disturbed by a demon that caused loud noises and bad odors, with one report stating that the dog was randomly thrown across a room. In 1986, Ed and Lorraine Warren arrived at the home, and according to Ed, the demon that was inhabiting the home was incredibly powerful, with it shaking mirrors and furniture after they tried to get it to leave by playing religious music and praying. Ed even claimed that he felt a significant drop in temperature and saw a dark mass inside of the home. The demon also supposedly left a message on a mirror that read, "Get out." Ed and Lorraine Warren went on to state that their experience at the Smurl residence was unlike anything they had investigated at the time. Coming in at number 2, we have the Snedeker house. Now, many of you will be familiar with the Snedeker house haunting thanks to the movie The Haunting in Connecticut. The Haunting in Connecticut movie was released in 2009 and directed by Peter Cornwell, and supposedly follows the alleged haunting of Carmen Snedeker and her family. Now, the movie has a ton of controversy surrounding it, with the author of the book the movie was based on even distancing himself from the accuracy of the events depicted in the book. Now, the film itself specifically focuses on the fictional Campbells as they move into the new home, which was formerly a mortuary to mitigate the strains of travel on Matt, her cancer-stricken son. However, not long after moving into the new home, the family becomes haunted by violent and supernatural forces. Now, the true story is a lot different. In 1986, Carmen and Alan Snedeker moved into a new home with their daughter and 3 sons. While exploring the home, they discovered tools used by morticians. Very creepy indeed. With it being discovered to be a former funeral parlor, with the eldest son beginning to see ghosts and be haunted by terrifying visions. The family eventually turned to demonologists Ed and Lorraine Warren, who proclaimed that the home was infested with demons. Now, this is supposedly all very much true, however many have had their doubts over the years, including Snedeker's landlord, who found the entire story ridiculous, even noting that prior to the family moving in, there had been no complaints or unusual activity inside of the home. On top of that, the Snedekers stayed for a total of 2 years before finally deciding to leave. And finally, coming in at number 1, we've got Enfield poltergeist. Taking the Warrens across the ocean, the Enfield poltergeist has become a popular paranormal case, with it also being the focal point for The Conjuring 2. The Conjuring 2 was released in 2016 and followed Ed and Lorraine as they traveled to Enfield in the United Kingdom to assist the Hodgson family, who was said to be experiencing paranormal activity inside of their home in 1977, with the daughter Janet even becoming possessed by a former resident. Now, this movie is very much based on a true story, however, when a paranormal experience is dubbed real, people tend to try and find holes in the story, with many doubting the accounts of the family. Like I said, the Enfield poltergeist was a claim of supernatural activity between the years of 1977 to 1979, with it specifically involving 2 sisters, Margaret and Janet. In August of 1977, single-parent Peggy Hodgson claimed she had witnessed furniture moving and heard knocking sounds around her home. A police officer arrived on scene and he himself reported seeing a chair wobble and slide across the floor without any rhyme or reason. Following this, disembodied voices were heard, loud noises echoed around the home, and the children even began levitating. More than 30 people were reported seeing furniture move and heard voices around the home. Ed and Lorraine Warren were of course called in to assess the situation, with them visiting the home in 1978 and were convinced that the events had a supernatural explanation.
Coming in at number 5, we have the Perrin family. It's January 1971. A large farmhouse sits in Harrisville, Rhode Island. The Perrin family, Carolyn, Roger, and their 5 daughters move into what they thought would be their dream home. One night the family notices strange occurrences happening. A couple of strange noises as if they hear things moving on their own, couple chairs. From the first night to the first week, right away though, the incidents got worse over time. It started with a missing broom at first, but then resulted in a paranormal nightmare, to say the least. In researching the home, Carolyn discovered that the same family had owned it for 8 generations previous to them, during which time many had died by either drowning, murder, or even hanging. Paranormal investigator team Ed and Lorraine Warren, the New England demonologists, were brought in. This is where it gets haunting. After a walk about the property, they claimed that the home was haunted by a demon named Bathsheba. In fact, a woman named Bathsheba Sherman had lived on the property in the 1800s. Whoever the spirit was, she perceived herself to be the mistress of the home, and she resented the new homeowners. According to Andrea Perrin, one of the daughters, who remembers the night vividly, says the family encountered several spirits in the house that caused them turmoil. Beds levitating in the middle of the night, tall ghostly shadows, and even their bedrooms reeking of rotten meat. Ew. The family avoided going into the basement at all because of a cold, deathly presence. Basements, man, always. The things that went on there were so incredibly frightening. Quote from Lorraine herself: "The Warrens made frequent trips to the house over the years, and the Perrin family lived there. They performed a seance that had Carolyn Perrin speaking in tongues before she was allegedly thrown across the room by a spirit. The Warrens made frequent trips to the house, but Lorraine insisted that she and her husband would never ever try an exorcism, which must be performed, of course, by a Catholic priest, due to its dangers. The seances apparently allegedly caused Carolyn Perrin to be temporarily possessed one time, which Andrea, their daughter, claims she watched unknowingly from the top of the stairs. Shaken by the seances and concerned for his wife's mental health, Roger Perrin asked the Warrens to leave and stop investigating the house, since it was making things even worse. According to Andrea Perrin, the family finally gave in and moved out of the house in 1980. Luckily for them, the presence did not follow them.
Number 4 on this list is Kubishev Square. Back in 2015, a video was uploaded to YouTube from an account named D-Man Operator. The video is only 50 seconds long and shows someone getting chased by a demon or monster in Kubishev Square. Let's roll 30 seconds of that clip and see what you guys think about this demon. So the man gets into the park, and just to the left of him is this completely demonic looking spider creature. It's slow out of the gate, but then it starts coming after him. The final 10 seconds of the video is going to show this thing get really close to him and then spit what looks to be some green toxic fluid out at him. Let's roll that now. So yeah, let's put it this way. Whatever this thing was, it definitely isn't human or any sort of animal that we're aware of. Now, can I say for sure that it's a demon? No, I can't, but I can say that it definitely looks very dangerous. Watch your back, everybody. This thing came after this dude in broad daylight in the park. Number 3 on this list is the scariest video that you'll ever watch. That's actually what the YouTubers Mindseed TV titled this video that they posted roughly about a year ago. In this video, several guys are on a ghost hunt late at night in a haunted home. The whole video is roughly 40 minutes long, and they capture a ton of cool stuff. One of the scariest parts of this entire video, though, is what I'm about to show. Did you guys see it? It was pretty fast, so I understand if you didn't. From behind the bushes of this man's home, there was a creature that looked very far from being human. Let's get a closer look at this thing, and you guys feel free to comment down below what the heck you think this thing is. So seriously, what the heck is that? It almost looks like it has some underwater qualities, but like, obviously that doesn't make any sense at all. I personally think this is a demon of some kind, but what it wants with this man and where it came from, these are all questions that we may not be getting answers to anytime soon. And finally, number 1 on this list is the hallway demon. This next video was posted back at the end of 2020 and shows somebody getting into a very close encounter with what looks to be a dangerous demon. Yeah, so if that's me, I am getting the hell out of there, folks. I don't care what I think I know about demons or how many freaking boxing classes I've taken in the past. I am not sticking around to see how I'd fare against something like that. Also, let's face it though, the person filming was going through a totally abandoned building that had rumors of a haunting. They pretty much knew what they were getting into with this one. Still though, very scary nonetheless.
Coming in at number 5, we have The Conjuring House. Upon its release in 2013, The Conjuring quickly became a fan favourite in the horror genre, with it being met with critical acclaim. The film itself follows demonologists and ghost hunters Ed and Lorraine Warren, who head to a home in the country after a family reported demonic activity inside of their home. Now, at the time of the release, people knew very little about Ed and Lorraine Warren or the true events surrounding this investigation. The Perrin family moved into their haunted Rhode Island home in 1971. Not long after, Carolyn, Roger and their 5 daughters began to experience strange goings on. Brooms going missing, scraping noises and small piles of dirt appearing out of nowhere. All small things at first, which soon developed into big things. The girls eventually began to notice spirits around the home, with the history of the home soon being revealed. Many people had drowned in the lake, and of course the worst spirit of them all was Bathsheba, a woman who devoted herself to the devil and took her own life on the property, cursing anyone who would take her land. Ed and Lorraine Warren of course came to investigate the situation, with Lorraine conducting a seance to attempt to communicate with the spirits tormenting the family. During the seance, Carolyn became possessed, rising from the ground in her chair and speaking in tongues. Following the seance, the Warrens were kicked out of the home, with the family continuing to live there until 1980. Before we jump into number 4, be sure to give this video a big thumbs up, it really helps out a lot.
Number 4. The Snedeker House. In 1986, Ed and Lorraine Warren were on the scene yet again. We know these two. They're the superhero duo and couple that have literally riddled this planet most of its dark forces. They arrived and proclaimed the Snedeker House, a former funeral home, to be absolutely infested with demons. The Haunting in Connecticut, a film very loosely based on the Warrens' versions of events, was released in 2009. In 1986, Carmen and Al Snedeker moved to a small town of Southington, Connecticut, with the purpose of being closer to the hospital at which their oldest son had been treated for Hodgkin's lymphoma. It was while they were moving in that Al made a startling discovery. In the basements again, in particular, the room that was completely embalmed with tables and tools. Okay. The house, it turned out, used to be a funeral home. Oof. Not long after, Carmen says she began experiencing strange phenomena like items disappearing, and her children reported seeing strange people in the house, as well as hearing voices and the sounds of hundreds of birds taking flight. Her oldest, who at the time was in the middle of radiation treatment, began to exhibit radical personality shifts, becoming animalistic and angry. Mop water was reported to turn to blood red, and the sense of rotting flesh and decay were reported all throughout the home. She was also frightened of apparitions that she saw one night with long black hair and black eyes, and the other with white hair and white eyes wearing a pinstripe tuxedo. It was then that Carmen decided to contact Ed and Lorraine, along with a few other investigators. The Warrens moved into the house until they'd experienced this presence the Snedekers were talking about. During their time in the house, they claimed to have seen first-hand demons in the home, with many team members being slapped and beaten and even slammed to the floor. The Warrens deemed it necessary for a full-scale exorcism, after which the house was judged clear by the Warrens themselves. And a peaceful aura then seemed to linger instead of this once cold, dark presence. I mean, it's a funeral home, you know, right off the bat. That's a no-no for me. Number 3, the Smurl haunting. The Smurls moved into their dream home in West Piston, Pennsylvania, August 1973. They claimed that the premises were disturbed by a demon that caused loud noises and bad odors, eventually even throwing their dog into a wall, shaking their mattresses, pushing their daughters down a flight of stairs, and then physically assaulting some family members on several occasions. In 1986, the family had had enough and brought in the pair of demonologists, Ed and Lorraine Warren. According to Ed Warren, the demon that inhabited the Smurl's home was very powerful, shaking mirrors off the walls, moving furniture of course about the room after they tried to persuade it to leave by playing religious hymns and praying. The Warrens claimed that when a drastic temperature drop happened, a tall dark mass formed in the home, and the demon left a message on the mirror telling them to, quote, "get out." After months of investigation, the Warrens alleged that they had a number of audio tapes containing knocking and movement sounds made by the demon. Spokespeople for the Roman Catholic Church said that the home was blessed by several priests who said that they saw no harmful activity. The Smurls, however, claimed a priest performed 3 unsuccessful exorcisms and that the demon avoided the rites by moving between the floors of the home. That same year, the pastor of Immaculate Conception Parish in West Piston said the Smurls felt that after intense prayers, things were finally back to normal. After the Smurl family moved, the next family never encountered anything supernatural while living there. Hoax or haunting? What do you think? Number 2, Amityville. The Warrens are best known for their involvement in the 1975 Amityville horror investigation. New York couple George and Kathleen Lutz claimed that their house was haunted by a violent, demonic presence so intense that it eventually drove them out of their home with mental health problems. The reported haunting was the basis for the 1977 book and adapted into the 1979 and 2005 films of the same name, while also serving as inspiration for the film series that followed. Though their investigations remain intriguing, the Amityville horror case was Ed and Lorraine Warren's claim to fame. In November 1974, 23-year-old Ronald DeFeo Jr., the eldest child of the DeFeo family, murdered his entire family, including all of his siblings, in their beds with a .35 caliber rifle. Ugh. The infamous case became the catalyst for the claim that demons and spirits haunted the Amityville house. In 1976, George and Kathy Lutz and their 2 sons moved into the Long Island home and soon believed a demonic spirit was residing there with them. George said that he witnessed his wife transforming into a 90-year-old woman and then levitating above their bed late at night. They even claimed to see slime seeping out of their walls and a pig-like creature running around their house. Even more unsettling, knives flew off the counters, pointing right at family members. It got so violent and unpredictable that the family walked around the house with a crucifix, reciting the Lord's prayers around their neck. On their final night there, they say banging as loud as a marching band was coming from the house. 28 days after being in the house, they had to leave. Yeah, no doubt. Ed and Lorraine Warren visited the home, and according to the Warrens, Ed was thrown to the floor and Lorraine felt an overwhelming demonic presence. Along with their research team, they claim to have captured a picture of a spirit in the form of a little boy on the stairway. The story became so infamous the couple passed a lie detector test with flying colors. That's terrifying. Their son, Daniel, admits that he still has nightmares about the horrifying things that he experienced in the house growing up. Yeah, gruesome stuff. I won't spoil Act 3, but it gets dark and bloody. Speaking of gruesome, and our number 1 spot, Michael Taylor. It's 1974, Yorkshire, England. Michael Taylor, aged 31, father of 5 and husband to Christine Taylor. Michael was a well-mannered and caring father and husband. Michael, like anyone, became depressed from a back injury and left him short on work and oddly off. After seeking religious advice and one-on-one sessions at a local church, Michael started having outbursts and acting aggressively. Puzzled, of course, he sought one-on-one sessions which turned ugly very soon. After apparently changing form and attacking Marie, a young religious leader helping Taylor, and unable to remember anything, Michael and the church agreed that an exorcism was necessary. Father Peter Vincent and Reverend Raymond Smith met at St. Thomas and started. It got so violent, he was even tied to the church floor. After hours in the middle of the night, the two had managed to exorcise more than 40 demons out of Michael, in which they had appeared around them as they exited. Violence continued, leaving only 3 remaining for the next day. After returning home from the first session, Michael was found now hours later, naked, in the middle of the street, covered head to toe in blood. Michael apparently had returned home, which then his wife and family dog lay dead as the police arrived in the AM. He was arrested soon after for the death of his wife. Michael had this to say about his late wife in court. Quote, "Released. I am released. It is done. The evil in her has been destroyed." He was acquitted on psychological conditions, and the jury found that he had met his breaking point during the exorcism. He was acquitted on insanity and remained in and out of facilities until he passed in 2013.